And I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of Black Americans. So imagine this. Imagine you live in India.
Hi, welcome to Trust TV.
You, your wife.
And just to start it off, we're going to react and respond to this stupid video. This guy's a shock jock. Do not take him serious. He makes this type of content all the time just to get people talking and discourse between the community. He's the type of Negro that want us to be looking down upon ourselves, hating ourselves, and glorifying other races as if we did not bust our ass building these communities. But let's go on and listen to him.
You've got 2 kids. You move your family over here and you have nothing once you get here. Or let's say you've got $3,000 to your family's name by the time you get here. By the way, you don't speak English very well at all. Very broken English, you can barely even understand it. Yet you apply for 200-300 jobs, find yourself a job, you start making money. From there, you're working your butt off and you're saving every penny.
All right, so question. You said they apply for 200 or 300 jobs. How are they applying for 300 jobs? How? They're not from this country. They speak a bit of English. So we're not applying for jobs? I'm sorry, sweetie. I do work. I'm an American Negro. I work night shifts. I actually work 2 jobs. And as a result of working 2 jobs, I make $73,000 a year. So, what the fuck are you talking about? I apply and bust my ass and got a skill and a trade. And I have since I was about 16 years old. I never got a college degree. I did some college courses, but college just wasn't for me. So as a result, I got a trade. Once I got my trade in nursing and got all my certifications, I started working. I was about 17 years old, right? 16, then 17 years old. I got my first job when I was 17 and saved up my money. Helped my mama out in her house, and I lived with my mom. Right? Then I got 20 years old and decided I wanted to go back to school, went back to school, got my associate's degree. Not my associate's degree, got my adverse administration certificate. And I worked on my associate's degree and went to school for a little bit. Again, like I said, school wasn't for me, so I wanted to find a trade that I could get into. Finally, I did. I went and got a trade in doing security, right? And I've been doing, I did nursing for quite some time. I did nursing for over 12 to 13 years. And then finally, I decided I'm going to put security to use. And I took and got and made sure that I was up to date on my security. And I've been working as a security guard ever since then, right? I work 2 jobs. 2. I do nursing in the morning. And then I do security at night. I bust my ass taking my credit from a 500 to a 700 credit score. I'm still working to get there, right? I don't have kids, right? But if I had children, I would build up them to make sure that they not just go to college, but actually get a trade and know how to actually do something other than sit and just learn from somebody, especially. It depends on their trade. I don't mind my kid being a doctor or a lawyer. Definitely would love that. And we have nieces and nephews, aunties and uncles who are doctors and lawyers. So this idea that we don't want anything or they should laugh at us. Why? We're successful. Not every Negro is successful, but if you go to their country, they're not successful. Every person in their country is not successful. And why should they laugh at us? They couldn't even make it in their own country and came over to this country to make it. So who's the real laughing stock? Because they couldn't make it in their country, the same way they can't down us for not being able to make it in our country because we're being oppressed because they couldn't make it in their country, hence why they're here. So why should they laugh at us? They couldn't sustain in their own country, speaking their own language. Are we kidding me? Hold up. Let's talk about it. They could not make it in their own country where they spoke the language. The same shit that they're escaping in their country, we are living in the country where asylum seekers and immigrants are doted on more by society. When Martin Luther King talked about the county grants and the land grants and the county agents who wanted to they wanted to undergird their white peasants with an economic floor, right? He was talking about the white immigrants that came to America, right? And in America, what did they do to the Negro community? Because we talking about slavery. Let's talk about slavery time, sweetie. We were colonized 3 times. Well, it's more than 3 times. As the original American Indian, we are first colonized by the Spanish and Portuguese. Ooh, and how do I know we the American Indian? Easy. The Racial Integrity Act of 1924 didn't reclassify us from being African, but from Indian to Negro, colored, and black, and then in 1988 to African American. That's how I know. So we were colonized by the Spanish and the Portuguese, right? And then after we were colonized by them, they assimilated into our society because they couldn't make it. Then we had the Quakers over here, the Pilgrims. So all assimilating and so forth and so on, all assimilating into a society that we together helped build and create the society you see today. When white people came and somewhere in maybe the 1820s, 1817 or 1820 era, they didn't have a pot to piss in a window to throw it at her. They were asylum seekers who came as indentured servants and slaves, right? Which is the same thing. And so when they came over here after World War I, they were jealous. Need I make you watch the video? I'll show you better than I could tell you. Hold up.
It's not on my channel.
Check out Dan Calloway's video. But I'm going to show and prove my point to you.
In today's society of America, it is called the Black Wall Street. But in the early 1900s...
And it wasn't just the Black Wall Street that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This bombing and burning down of towns happened all throughout America to Negro communities that were bustling. It happened all throughout New York City. It happened all throughout each state. Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, all Texas, Florida, you name it. And my grandfather, who was senator and who was in Congress in 1850s, he grew up in Union County, South Carolina. Union County, South Carolina still got old ruins of buildings white people tore and demolished in their jealous, heated rages.
It was known as the Negro Wall Street.
I sound young.
This nickname
Look at our community.
Thousands and consistently visited
and
by
we built
millions
this.
of fellow Aborigines from all across the country.
Amen.
This landmass of Tulsa came a
Look at the communities. Look at the buildings. We built this. We built these things. These buildings.
Between the years of 18
these homes that they say are slave homes, but are in fact not slave homes, our homes. Of immigrants who lived in crap houses,
clans or nations and tribes alike.
Moved off our land.
According to the LOC, the Indian Removal Act was passed by the House and the Senate in the same day of May 26, 1830. Then immediately signed into law by then President Andrew Jackson just 2 days later.
I thought we only talked about slavery was the only effects that we talking about. I thought you said slavery with your silly self. Negroes is silly out here. Educate yourself for making dumb videos saying what happened. Let's continue.
This sole authorization made it official.
Slavery wasn't the only problem in our community, you dummy. It wasn't even, slavery didn't even happen like that, but I guess you never educated yourself outside of the white voice to understand that even slavery did not happen like that. They stole our lands and changed our identity. Not only did they steal our land through treachery and murder and take on our identity and put it in their census, they reclassified us. And this went on for decades and years. And the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, they reclassified us not from being African, but from Indian, calling us colored, Negro, and black, even at times mulatto. Then in 1988, by some law out of nowhere, Jesse Jackson came up with African American. And then they've been telling you for a long time about 1619, which we already debunked and know that's false, that we were African. So not only did they steal your lands, burn it down, torture you, and run you out of your communities through treachery, lynching, fires, and bombings, they also changed your identity, re-educated, and took your children from you so that you would not be able to let your children know who they truly are. they now got a lot of you Negroes brainwashed to believe that we didn't have no struggles and it was just slavery, and that's the reason why and immigrants should laugh at us because we can't make it in our own country. Immigrants couldn't make it in their own country. That's why they're here. So who could they laugh at? And a lot of what we went through in our country isn't even what they have been through, and they still couldn't make it. They don't understand what has happened and what is still happening to us in our country. They couldn't laugh at anything because they didn't deal, because the same things that immigrants are trying to leave and escape from their and some of the same things that immigrants are leaving their country for and coming to America for is the same shit that we are still dealing with in America that they left their countries for. A dictatorship that seeks weaponizing brutality to its people and giving the guns in the hands into terrorist groups and organizations to torture your community. That happens to us all the time. What do you call police brutality? How do you think these gangs are getting guns? You think that they're just waking up one morning having the money to buy guns? If Negroes are so impoverished and we don't want for nothing, then how are they getting weapons to shoot up their community? I'll wait. The drugs that was peddled in our society, we didn't have no boats to get no cocaine bush from Cuba or wherever it's from. They brought that into our community. Who? The government did. So while y'all escaping that in y'all country and coming over here to escape a ruler who don't give a fuck about you and society and just care about lining their pockets, we're dealing with that over here in America. We ain't got no escape. That's the difference between you and us. Let's finish.
Action to grant unsettled lands to the native Indians in exchange for their current Indian territories.
Yep.
So, from the years of 1828 to 1886, the commonly known Choctaw.
What up, Montana? That ain't it. What else, Dane?
Chibwe.
Chickasaw.
He's a G-way. He not Chickasaw. If I'm saying that right. Not them.
Cherokee.
Those are not it. Because some of those were Mongols. You gotta be careful. Or Hindustan.
Seminole.
Nope, not those. Those are not it. They're not Seminoles. Sorry, guys.
With the RE music in the back.
Those aren't.
And Creek tribes.
Because some of those are Chino slaves, so I gotta be careful.
Not to exclude the many uncommonly known Indian nations of the South. Application of immigration with an E.
This is Dan Calloway. Do check his channel out.
Historical records and signed many treaties pertaining to slave liberation and the reconstruction of their livelihoods during the mid-1800s, allotting lands of approximately 40 to 250 acres to native Indians, giving off yet the most accurate answer as to why there were nearly 7,000 copper-colored Americans residing within the newly established Indian territories of Oklahoma by 1870. Oklahoma was considered to have the most all-black communities throughout America during that time period.
And they were
These
jealous.
generous black communities welcomed even more freed slaves to come reside in the lands of Oklahoma, more specifically in the city of Tulsa. But many can recall the city of Tulsa as being a heavily segregated racist hellhole, having been
With white immigrants who were jealous that they were living as peasants and came in and burned our towns down. Now we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
But that did not stop the Aborigines from flourishing on their own.
We flourished on our own. We weren't beggars and lazy like people try to tell us.
Town of Tulsa for having discovered oil and single-handedly booming the city of Tulsa. This happened all southwest.
And what did they do? Because they found those resources. Once they
Red Fork is documented as the small southwest town of Tulsa for having discovered oil and single-handedly booming the city of Tulsa.
Now, once they saw that this neighborhood had this, and once they saw that this town had all these resources, they began a plan. They devised a plan on how to get the land from the Negroes, who were, what? Yes, the Indian.
The rebellion subsided, and the Indians were forced to cede the majority
All the
of their
lands in
Indian
which was ours.
territories in Oklahoma to thousands of white non-Indian citizens that were allowed to be identified as to cede the majority of their Indian territory. This happened shortly after most of the violent Indian rebellion subsided, and the Indians
Look at where they at.
were forced to cede the majority.
A little bit more. I'm gonna just pause it just in case you want to screenshot it. I probably have this somewhere. It's probably on an old
in Oklahoma to thousands of white non-Indian citizens
Yep,
that were
the Chino
allowed to be
slaves.
identified as
Keep in mind, this
Indians
is all
under the
Oklahoma.
color of law. And one of my previous videos called The Untold Truth about the $5 Indians.
Look at this. Now look at these house. If you can't see it, and I know it's not clear, this is what white people lived in. If you see the white man there with his wife and his children, this is how they lived. They lived in shacks. They didn't have a pot to piss in our window to throw it at her. We lived in the so-called slaves. We lived in mansions, huge homes, the ones they call plantation homes. Those were our homes. Again, this is where white people lived. This is his house, his home with his wife. Their children you can't see because the way it looked. Oh, sorry, guys.
Stated that the U.S. government created a separate freedmen's
That's
list.
another video that's missing.
Again, hold on, guys.
Established them identified as Indians by merely paying the Dawes Road Commission.
Not just them, as well as Chino slaves, but this ain't the video we talking about.
Adult basis for freedmen enrollment. This motion single-handedly allowed all white citizens the rights to legally cede the Indian lands of America, reparations, plus the optimized benefits having been set in stone by way of many previous U.S. and Indian treaties. Multiple public schools and all other industrialized institutions are keeping this open secret in the dark for obvious reasons. Beautiful furniture,
these are homes,
even grand pianos.
They were into that stuff and had the money.
Anybody who wishes for the good old days probably doesn't remember what the good old days were really like. Because in 1921, the nation suffered.
1921 now, not slavery.
Discrimination, arrogance,
white
and
tenants.
those were probably the underlying reasons. They manifested themselves in organizations like the Ku Klux Klan. But you can't blame the riot.
You can't blame them. Why?
2 or 3 specific incidents. The environment is what caused it. You have to keep in mind that in 1921, the majority of the Oklahoma legislature were Klansmen. Almost every city and county official in Tulsa County, Oklahoma was elected with either support of the Klan or they were Klansmen themselves.
That's all you heard what he said? All politicians that were elected is being legislators or politicians, whatever you want to call them, in Oklahoma.
So now we know who's in our Congress.
Okay, so I'm
so now you can understand why there's things that are happening to us in our community now. Get it together. But I thought only slavery affected us. This Negro.
It's to let y'all know, like basically the setup. Here go to play.
Those days, the Klan would have parades in downtown Tulsa, wearing their white sheets and their pointy little hats to fit their pointy little heads. That would last 4 to 5 hours in length. Now visualize the number of people that were involved in a parade that would last 4 to 5 hours. And all these people came from Tulsa. When you have a parade in Tulsa, a lot of people come in from other counties. But you also have to remember that 1925, there were 5 million card-carrying Ku Klux Klansmen in this country.
5 million whites and mixed white. It wasn't just whites. Probably Asians and all kinds of foreigners under those.
It probably would have happened someplace else. The difference between Tulsa and some other city is that we know how bad it got. And where we've gone since then has been a mark of our progress. Has been a mark of our progress.
Mark of their progress. Do you hear me? Wasn't just slavery. They burned our towns down. Burned them to the fucking ground. Do immigrants deal with that in their country? Their own government burning down towns that belong to them because out of jealousy, immigrants coming into our country, burning down our stuff, and then taking a government in our communities and oppressing us within it.
Spandau and Browning submachine guns. We've gone since then has been a mark of our progress. Has been a mark of our progress. Has been a mark of our progress. When you have thousands of white men coming back from World War I, bringing back Souvenir Lewis, Spandau, and Browning submachine guns, and a variety of other weapons that they brought back from the battlefield.
They were bringing it back home.
And then they can't find jobs.
Then they couldn't find jobs.
And the
Negroes was all Negro. The power structure was all Negro.
As was occurring in other cities.
We're all Negro.
Would enlist them in the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, not that.
And blame their problems
on Negroes.
On Jews.
Nah, it wasn't Jews. Lies. Negro. Or unless you're talking about the Sephardic Jews.
Remember we went over this before? Mm-hmm. Or who those people are?
Negroes.
Mm-hmm. We ain't got to get into it. I'm not going to go into it.
Have they Negroes? Check out Camario Eye videos if you want to know who the he talking about. They were not white. He talking about the Jews. He not talking about the white Jews. He's talking about the Sephardic Jews. He's talking about the black Europeans and the black American Indian who are, well, so-called black American Indians that were in power at that time.
Who they had an issue with.
And the Spanish and Portuguese were a fat Catholic, and they were Negroes too.
Simple answer to a complex problem for simple people.
They were poor and had nothing, and they wanted somebody else.
Stand in downtown Tulsa and look at the
Negroes mansions we lived in
Little Africa.
And it wasn't Little Africa. It wasn't no Negro Africa. That's a lie. That's why he got ready to smirk, because he knew he was telling a lie when he said it. It was just a bustling Negro community that was successful, and we lived in mansions. Not out of my mouth, his mouth. We lived in mansions, and they were jealous.
Street.
Stop.
Down Tulsa.
Listen. And
look at the mansions in Little Africa in the Black Wall Street.
Mansions.
There's no Little Africa. There's no such thing as that. That's what they called it, because they wanted to now deem you as African. Remember, we were reclassified.
We were doing well.
We were doing very well.
And seethe.
And haven't the paradigm switch? Aren't they now living in mansions? And then we're looking over and they're getting mad because we're now going to achieve what we already had that they stole from us or burned down from us.
The early morning of May 31st, 1921, a 19-year-old young black professional by the name of Dick Rowland worked as a shoe shiner in the downtown area of Tulsa.
Oh no, they playing ads?
And he...
problem for simple people. Meanwhile, they could stand in downtown.
Mansions is what he said. They were looking at the mansions. The way he explained it is what happened. After those wars, they were coming home with the guns. They were coming home with
and
the
they used it against us.
Poor,
and we're jealous.
Get work.
Yeah.
So they enlisted themselves in the KKK.
Which was devised to
get something out of
terrorize us.
But the only way to get something out of that
is to tear them.
To join the organization that's about nationalizing themselves against a set group of people. What she explained was the Jews, the so-called African Americans, and the Catholics.
Whatever that is. And these are two race.
Now
These
we
aren't
know who
even
that
racist.
is.
They're
That's
practice.
Bones, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. But I told you that they're all together. They just had separate beliefs. These were the Protestants. Okay. As far as their belief is concerned.
And I know this video was initially about this, the other video about the black man saying that about immigrants, but this is involved. This is what I want you to understand. When you are sitting here talking about we only had slavery to deal with, that's a lie.
Name up during a live stream before, like a recent live stream. So his name was Dick Rowland. All right, so I have it. Okay.
A professional by the name of Dick Rowland
been
worked
so
as a shoe shiner in the downtown area of
We're
Tulsa.
gonna get to the point.
Another lynching. In
They were
fact,
lynching
at the
Negroes.
end of the article, it stated, quote, "It looks like there will be another lynching in Tulsa tonight."
Because they claim the black boy touched a white woman. Isn't that familiar? Why do you think white women cry wolf now? Ooh, black man trying to hurt me. Ooh, black woman trying to hurt me. Because they've been using that as a way to tear our character down, tear who we are as a people down, and tear down our communities by using white women as a pawn. And y'all niggas going out there thinking that you having a white woman supposed to be the very women used to hurt you and tear your community down. It's a joke. That you could sit back and start comparing your women who've been dealing with this shit for decades. This shit for decades with you. And you tear us down. And we've been through this shit. We've been through the mud, but side by side with you, and then you go marry a foreign woman, a white woman, Asian woman, and look down upon me like we didn't suffer alongside with you, watching our children be lynched, our husband being lynched as well, and going through the same terror that you went through. And this wasn't just during slavery, but your dumb ass.
Paying her way through college. The article also stated that she had scratches on her hands and face.
Which they found out later she had
The official
nothing.
background of this young girl did come out to the public after further investigation, confirming that she had no scratches anywhere on her body, and she was in fact not an orphan.
See there?
She just recently deserted her husband in Kansas City.
The white woman they talk about that claimed that black boy touched her.
In Tulsa, just 2 months prior to this incident, but unfortunately this news was released too late. The Tulsa Tribune newspaper company played a major role of the hundreds of lynchings of black people in the city of Tulsa and all across.
And all of this again was just to take and steal from us. They turned the electric off. This wasn't in the 1800s, sweetie.
Throughout the very next day, the black citizens of the Greenwood district.
This happening. The woman is still alive, 91 years old.
Listen.
Mobs of armed whites were.
Hold on. Look how.
No, I want y'all to hear this. This isn't just during the time of slavery. What was the residual effects of burning down Black Wall Street? All their wealth was lost. The residual effects to that is our banks were there. So all our money was gone. We were poor now after that. Not we, but them. And this did not just happen in that community. That's the only one that was documented live. Our communities, many of them, we lost everything because they burned down our banks. They burned out and we had nothing. And the residual effects to nothing, motherfucker, is nothing. We had to work our way back up to what we have now.
I'm not gonna
I told myself not to either, but shit.
Were looting the businesses and the houses of the middle class
They were
black citizens
looting.
of Greenwood, taking money, clothes, furniture, and anything else that they
And
thought was of
homes,
value.
and then burned it to the ground.
Mostly all of these things they never had before due to the poor conditions of their own communities. Once they were done looting one place, they'll set
Look
it on
at
fire.
look at the business establishments, and you think that white people came to this country and built these buildings? They did not. We already had built them. Hence why Tulsa, Oklahoma, and these nice houses and buildings that you see all over the Americas, we built. We were the ones who constructed them. They deconstructed them.
This was all done out of complete greed and jealousy towards the wealthier black citizens of Tulsa. Martial law was then declared around 11 a.m. on July 1st, and the National
big
Guard of
homes.
Oklahoma arrived into town by
Shooting
train,
and killing
heavily
Negroes.
armed and shooting any black person at will.
Thank you.
Multiple cars full of white mobsters and militants came
Look at the
flying into Greenwood.
Look at the gun they got on it, y'all. That's a 50 caliber weapon. Like, really, nigga? I mean, okay, but I'm just saying, how they got away with this, y'all?
Well, because everybody just looks at us as bad guys.
Any black person at will. Multiple cars full of white mob district. And speaking of flying into Greenwood, these militants also bombed the houses and buildings by planes, immediately increasing the death toll to well over 6,000 innocent black Americans.
But I thought only slavery was the problem. We worried about what happened back in 100 years ago. Ya dumb black ass saying stupid shit. That's not over 200 years ago, you fucking moron. And that wasn't just that. We have several evidence of white people coming in and terrorizing our communities, taking out of it, and ruining it, breaking it down. And this happened throughout history. So let's go back to this previous video where you were talking about immigrants should laugh at black folk, laugh at us. They couldn't make it in their own fucking communities. Why the fuck should they come over here laughing at anybody other than themselves for not being able to make it in their own fucking space? Now, I know I'm not attacking immigrants because they didn't say this stupid shit. A nigga did. So your dumb black ass should go and educate yourself. But for any immigrant who does watch this video, understand that you have no right to thumb your nose down at anybody. Because unless you went through the same shit as us, you wouldn't know the fucking half. You coming over here seeking asylum, not being able to make it in your country. So how the fuck could anybody laugh at us for not being able to make it in ours? And we're doing a fucking good job because we work and bust our ass, even in a community that still oppresses us. We have business owners, we get loans, we make sure that we are building ourselves up a new infrastructure to be able to maintain and sustain ourselves. We have not quit and we have not given up. Is there some bad in our community? Yep, just like there's some bad in everybody's backyard and everybody's community. We are not the only ones. So we're not going to sit here anymore and try to sit and back and just criticize Negroes and make us a laughing stock for the nations. Because if everybody could make it in their own goddamn country, they wouldn't be over in this motherfucker seeking asylum. So this is the end of these bullshit ass videos. Please, I'm sorry, forgive me for cursing. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and understand. Listen, can't nobody judge nobody over here. Can't nobody talk about us. We're not the best, and nor is anybody else. Now, I would show you the other videos of people responding to this fool, but I think I said what I said. This is a long enough video. This is Kendra with True Us TV, and I'm out. Bye.